What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni. I'm a musician and astrologer, and it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. As always, I thank y'all so very much for being here with me. Thank you for sending me a tip via Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. That's super helpful for me always. Thank you for going to zambonifunk.com, where you can find all of the stuff, including the upcoming astrology course, Astrology from the Ground Up. Classes will begin on October 24th. And we are going to have so much fun learning how to do astrology. It's very good for beginners and people who are familiar with astrology alike. You never get too good at the foundations. One time I took a 100 level music theory course, and then I retook that same 100 level music theory course, and it changed my whole concept. I'm much stronger as a musician because I took that foundational course a second time. And so you can do that with astrology, or you can, if it's your first time, then you can do it there as well, zambonifunk.com. Let's talk about the astrology of the week ahead. This week, what I really think is going on is we have an opportunity to update the model. Whatever you think is going on in the world probably isn't right, and that's not a failing on you. That's just because the world is too big and there are too many things to know, and so we consistently have to have a model of what's going on, and we have to and that model needs to be dynamic. We need to consistently be updating that with new information and new ideas about what can be true in the world. Here's where I'm going with this. So the main event this week is that we've got a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. This is the first Pisces eclipse that we are seeing in this series. So it goes on for about a year and a half. The eclipse cycle goes on for about a year and a half. The nodes have not actually shifted into Pisces and Virgo yet. So we're still going to see, in 2 weeks, we're going to see a next one that is going to be a new moon solar eclipse in Libra. So we're still going to be doing Aries Libra eclipses. We'll talk more about that in a couple of weeks. But right now, we're going to see the first of the eclipses in Pisces and Virgo. And we're going to see a lunar eclipse conjunct Neptune. So eclipses are typically catalytic moments when things sort of like reach a certain kind of boiling point or a tipping point, and things can change beyond that. Things change fairly dramatically on the other side of that moment. Now it is a year and a half long, and things will take a little while to sort of take place here. Eclipses are also moments of shadow and darkness. This is very important because there's a certain kind of like, I don't know what's next, or I don't know what's happening out here. It's dark, it is shrouded, and otherwise bright objects such as the full moon in this case, or sometimes the sun, will be cast into shadow, and there's a certain sense of like, oh, I don't know what the next step is that can come along with that. This one is conjunct Neptune. Neptune's job is to confuse things, to blur the boundaries on stuff, to be kind of weird and dissociative and this kind of thing. I talked about this at length on the Plant Cunning podcast, so you can check that out. I did a quarter ahead forecast there, so shout out to Plant Cunning. Appreciate y'all for having me on another time. But so that's available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts at. But so the main thing that I feel like is going on with this one is wild confusion, darkness, uncertainty. Just don't know what's happening here. We can remember that Neptune is very good in the deep ocean space that is Pisces. And if we think about Neptune in the bottom of the ocean, it's like there is no light down here. It's where the sea monsters live, and we don't have any idea what's going on out here. This cycle is going to go on for the next year and a half. So this is going to be the first moving, the first little bits of things like sort of coming apart at the seams a little bit, being like, oh, maybe this isn't what I thought it was. It's, featuring Neptune here is interesting because we've got Neptune's going to be a pretty major player in the next couple of years here as Saturn moves in a little bit closer and a little bit closer, and finally these two, Saturn and Neptune, are going to conjoin. They ultimately conjoin at the beginning of Aries, and so So Saturn being the infrastructure and borders and boundaries and all that sort of stuff, the skeleton of the thing, and then Neptune kind of blurring the boundaries. This is very much looking like the thing that you thought was real and solid might not actually be true in the way that you thought it was. And so what does that mean? Is the world made of the things that you think it's made of, or is it not? And so this is a week where we are going to introduce some uncertainty into that. Now, this is interesting here because we also this week see Mercury in Virgo making an opposition to that Saturn in Pisces. And also the Sun in Virgo is going to make a trine to Uranus in Taurus. To my mind, this feels like it's very good for a process like the scientific method. So the scientific method is the process of observation. You check stuff out, and then you think you have an idea about what's true. You develop a hypothesis, and then you develop a test to try something out to test that hypothesis. Is it true what I think is true? You run that test, you get whatever outcomes actually happen, and then you, based on what outcomes actually happen, there's a great chance that you were wrong, right? You just don't have all the information because all the information won't fit in your head and all the rest of that. So there's a good chance that your hypothesis was wrong in some kind of way. And so then you take whatever data came in and you update your model based on that. And so then that turns into the observation. You develop a new hypothesis, develop a new test, and on around we go. Right? That is the scientific method. This is a really good week for that because we've got Mercury in Virgo. Mercury in Virgo is very good for data analytics and data collection, this sort of thing, like paying attention to the little details. Mercury opposite to Saturn does have trouble. This looks like there's an impediment or obstacle to Mercury doing the thing that Mercury likes to do, the like writing everything down, the taking notes, the organizing information, all that sort of stuff. It looks like there's an impediment to that sort of situation, especially since we've got this Neptune eclipse going on, which introduces so much shrouded uncertainty into the situation that it might be a moment where it's like, oh, I don't even know what this could mean. How could this? So we're going to have to see some kind of like moving outside of what would normally be acceptable truths or something like this. This is why the Sun in Virgo making a trine to Uranus and Taurus is very good for outside of the box thinking. The Sun is going to be associated with vision and clarity and the eyes and this sort of thing. If we think about a light bulb moment, right? Like the lights coming on. This is very like the sun. The sun is involved here, and ideas and the intellect. Not necessarily so. If we think about the sun as being sort of like the self, the source, the light, the thing that's sort of inside you that wants to shine out, and it comes out through your eyes, and other people can see it through their eyes. They look at your eyes and see what kind of ideas you have, eye contact, and this sort of thing, right? Then immediately out from that, one out from the sun is Mercury. And so Mercury isn't the idea generator, Mercury is the idea translator, right? So if we're thinking about the sun as being the intellect that goes on the inside, making a trine, a supportive, helpful, beneficial aspect to Uranus in Taurus, this is all happening in earth signs, right? So it's this sense of like what is practical, what is tangible, what is actually true when you put it into practice. So we've got the Neptune stuff being weird, and Saturn is over there in Pisces, and so this is going to be very good for like developing an idea space that could work, that could be possible. This is going to be very good for like science fiction and this kind of thing, and like developing like world models and this kind of thing. Then there's a certain sense of like, okay, in practice, what actually happens when we run the test? What actually happens? What kind of data do we get back here? So Mercury opposite to Saturn, let's not forget to go slow with it. Sometimes Mercury can get a little speedy, can go like a little too fast with an opposition to Saturn. Perhaps one of those impediments might be a good idea for us to like put on the brakes a little bit, like slow things down, be diligent and deliberate about the way that we gather information, the way that we sort our information, and be ready to come up with a next idea, trine Uranus Sun, and then maybe run a next text, develop a next test. This is a really good week for figuring out what is true. Appreciate you.